Today on Dead Dodge Garage, we make a classic Chrysler B-body handle not horrible. A gazillion-year-old alignment machine is just one of the nice pieces of equipment we've got here at Rocket. There are a whole lot of steps I'd have to go through to show you actual readings on this ancient machine, so I don't think I'm going to do that because I'm running out of time here. But the gist of it is this. 4 sensors are mounted to all of the tires, then you compensate them, which means you loosen those knobby thingies and spin the tires and they figure out what's what. Then they give you a camber reading, which is what the wheel's doing this way. They give you a toe reading, which is what the wheel's doing this way. And after a procedure that involves steering left and right and holding the wheel at certain points, it measures the caster, which is a measurement of the lower and upper ball joints in this plane. Anyone that owns a car, period, has probably heard of a wheel alignment, but that's what it is. It's just adjusting the settings there so the wheels are cambered correctly, towed correctly, and have, give or take, the right amount of caster. Now here's where things get tricky on that. If you take your classic Mopar to an alignment shop, they're going to look in their computer and find the specifications from 1960 whatever. Unfortunately, those were set up with bias ply tires in mind, and they're pretty much useless for us today. Some alignment techs will plug those numbers in and align the car to that, and that's all they're willing to do. Some alignment techs know better and already have these numbers in mind or in their computer. For years now, my brother and I have been having these cars aligned by finding random specs on the internet and handing them to the Les Schwab guy. He's always been cool with it. Those specs are something like this. Negative 0.5 degrees camber, both sides, obviously, and at least 2 degrees caster, but ideally more, as much as possible, in fact. The toe measurement here, it's probably not even right. You want something like a 1/16 of an inch toe in. Really what you want is as much caster as you possibly can get. Positive caster, which is to say the upper ball joint is behind the lower ball joint. I dialed in 2 in the machine here. On this car, I ended up with 3.5 degrees on the left side and only about 2.5 degrees on the right side. More would be nice, but it's going to drive pretty well that way. And we really don't worry about those caster numbers being a little bit different. It's going to work fine. The camber and toe measurements are primarily for tire wear. The caster number, on the other hand, that helps your tires snap back to center. The more positive caster you got, the more your wheel will want to go straight ahead, and the more solid the front end will feel. One could get really scientific about all of this, if one were so inclined. But, well, it's about quitting time. One could attempt an alignment like this at home without an alignment machine, with like a bubble level, and a yardstick, and a tape measure, maybe some string. It's been done many times before. The toe measurement especially is, at least theoretically, pretty easy to get right. You measure the outside of the tires at the front, and the outside of the tires at the back. You want the front number to be a 1/16 of an inch smaller than the back number, and you're good to go. Another part of the alignment is centering the wheel. You'll notice this one doesn't look centered. That's because there's some play in this power steering box. I actually have gone through and made sure the toe is right and the wheel is as centered as it possibly could be. Ideally, when you're done, your tie rod sleeves will look about the same. That is to say, the amount of thread sticking out of them looks similar, at least. Yeah, looks pretty good to me. Now, there are cases where that won't happen. I mean, if the frame is tweaked or the steering box isn't centered right, you'll have to accommodate for that with these tie rod adjustments to get the steering wheel straight. In fact, in recent memory, I've seen at least one manual gearbox that had more travel one way than the other. The rods were set super short on one side, super long on the other side, and the wheel still wasn't quite straight, so I don't know what was up with that one. Gearbox, I think.
Gee, you're loud.
Jamie's recipe for okay handling. You know it's legit because it's got brake fluid soaked into it. Anyway, modern-ish tires. They don't have to be low pros necessarily, but something made this century on ideally a larger wheel with not a crap ton of sidewall is going to do a whole lot better than, well, something made last century. I'm not a low pro guy by any stretch of the imagination, and there are definitely options here. Just something decent. Offset upper control arm bushings. These go into the factory control arm and help to move the upper ball joint rearward in the car. But only if you install them the right direction. I put a set of these in my 66 Charger once, and I still wasn't able to get the kind of caster numbers I wanted. Probably my fault. New lower control arm bushings, ideally polyurethane. When these things go bad, and they do go bad, your entire suspension will be unpredictable and unreliable and wobble all over the place, and your steering wheel center will change sometimes, and it just won't be good in any way. If you put a new rubber one in there, it'll be great for a while, until it disintegrates just like the original. I like to use polyurethane for this. Much better, but sometimes squeaky. A big tubular front sway bar. Like this one. Very nice. I like it. Common problem though, the end links included with this one are too short, and the bar is actually contacting the strut rod on, well, not this side, but the other side. We're gonna remedy that with an end link that's an inch longer. Oh, or we could probably just flip that bracket upside down. More on that later. And then those modern alignment specs I was talking about. Aiming for the most caster you can possibly get. And those specs might vary for your model, I don't know, but these are at least in the ballpark. If you do these things, your otherwise stock suspension Mopar is going to handle pretty nice. It might not be out there winning, what are those races called where they go around corners? Yeah, I wouldn't know. Anyway, but it'll be a nice driver. Now, if you want to get fancy, you go down here below the brake fluid to the Get Fancy section. The first item on that list, firm feel gearbox. Borgeson is also an option. There are other companies. We like firm feel. They look stock, but they do good stuff. We install these in just about every car that comes through here, and trust me, it's worth it. It makes the hyperactive power steering less that. It's a great upgrade. Tubular upper control arms. Like those. The ones from Austin's Challenger. Tubular upper control arms are better. They just are. Now, for one thing, they're stronger, they deflect less, and many of them have even better adjustment than the factory camber bolts, so that's a nice touch too. Boxed lower control arms. As you can see on this stock Coronet lower control arm, it's just open. That's two pieces of stamped steel, loosely attached with like some rivets or something. You can buy a plate that goes onto the bottom, you fully weld it on both sides, and it boxes that control arm. It really increases the strength quite a bit. And below that, we've got subframe connectors and rear sway bars. Now, that's not really part of the front suspension, so I guess they're a different story altogether. But believe you me, it makes for a nice car. I've driven a couple now that are set up like this, and yeah, it always impresses me. Now, if you want, you can crumple that list of instructions up, throw it away, and get something crazy like, I don't know, coilovers for your Mopar. But if you do, you'll be throwing away a really, really good factory suspension system that responds to upgrades like the ones I just listed extremely well. Yeah. I'm not a coilover on Mopars guy. This stuff works great. And it looks factory, so there's that. Anyway, that's all I got. Refer back to that list of nice modifications, and you can make yourself a nice driving street Mopar. As for me, I gotta take this thing off life support now, so yay! I haven't done a separate update on this car in a while. My coworker Trev has been working on the interior and the trim and the nice little details. I mean, last time I showed it on camera, it didn't have a grill or a hood. So yeah, he's been busy here. But there is a good bit left to do, so yeah, I'll do an update when it's like driving, probably. If nothing else, I gotta check my work here and make sure the transmission works and tune the EFI. Anyway, as ever, thanks for watching. And remember, keep the grippy, handly side to the road. Oh yeah. Hopefully I make it home. You know, I just put a new idler arm in my Demon, but with how twitchy it is, $100 says it needs lower control arm bushings. Yeah. It's a tiny train. Oh, still quite loud.